Hey guys, welcome back to another whiteboard chat, and today we're going to talk about common nutrient deficiencies. So this is not a complete list by any means. I mean, there are plenty of other nutrient deficiencies that I see or that could occur. These just happen to be probably the most common ones that I see personally, and probably just common ones across the board. You can maybe sneak a couple other things in and out of this list, but this is a pretty common top 5 that we have here. So let's go over them, and I'll let you guys know why it might occur, how to fix it, what to look for, so on and so forth. First one, vitamin D. Now we're looking at vitamin D. You know, a lot of people are familiar with vitamin D. It's one of those things that you pretty much need to supplement with. Most people need additional vitamin D. Now, of course, sun exposure is going to help, right? Depending on how much sun exposure you get, you may need more or less vitamin D. Also, genetic factors will alter that. Now, we're looking at it, we want to measure it via the 25-hydroxy. If we're looking at serum levels, really easy blood test. You can just add it to your, normal labs. I have a lot of people add that to their labs, especially if I suspect deficiency. Now, typically the serum levels are in the 30 to 100 range. I'm trying to think of what the unit of measurement is off the top of my head. I don't recall, but I see a lot of deficiencies here, and I think common practice for people is to take like anywhere from 1 to 2, maybe 5,000 IUs. I actually noticed that a lot of people need more like 5 to 15,000 IUs. So very common nutrient deficiency. I know personally I take 15,000, plus I use my sun lamp. I don't get a lot of natural sun. I do get some when I can, but yeah, it's a lot of people need more than they think. I get a lot of people that inquire with me, or they do a consultation and they're already taking maybe 5,000 and they're still pretty deficient. So you really want to be the upper end of the range. So if it's something you're curious about, definitely just get it measured on your next lab work. You probably want to be around over 60. So take D3. I think most people probably assume that. Take D3. Don't be afraid to go higher than 5,000. You might need 10, 15, some people even 20. Okay. Folate, or B12 and folate. Now, B vitamins, right? Both. Now, we actually have a lot of foods within our typical diets that contain these ingredients, especially B12, especially is very abundant in meat sources. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, probably need a supplement. But why would somebody lack B12? And I get this question too, because I will see B12 deficiencies a lot more, and folate deficiencies a lot more than you might think. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of them being lack of intrinsic factors. So intrinsic factor in the gut is needed to basically assimilate and utilize the vitamins. Think of it as like think of it as the extra ingredient you need to metabolize the actual vitamin. So you can lack that, so you can have sufficient intake, but still have low levels. And I see that too. I think that's actually probably more common than people think. I don't know statistically if it's considered common, but it definitely does happen. Lack of dietary lithium. So lithium is needed to carry B12 into the cell to be used. So especially for, I'm talking more so for the B12, but yeah, that's another one. So there's kind of a 2-step process there now. So if you have, you have sufficient levels, but you're still having symptoms. And well, why would that be? And I kind of went through all this. So I thought, all right, I lack intrinsic factor. I need to take a specific form, which we'll talk about that. And, well, my B12 levels went up on my lab work. Why am I not experiencing relief? I needed lithium. So lithium orotate is the supplemental form that we would take. It's an elemental form. It doesn't take a lot, 5 to 10 milligrams. Generally, I just do 5 in the morning and 5 at night. And it does have some other benefits in there. So you can get dietary lithium through foods. It's not very many foods. It's kind of a small amount of foods, and not everyone's eating these things. So, and even then, I don't think that those foods contain a huge amount. So you're probably talking micrograms when we're supplementing in milligrams. So yeah, could have a couple reasons that occurs, and symptoms for that is typically anemia symptoms. You know, it is pernicious anemia, but essentially, I mean, you know, you're talking about the same kind of stuff you would generally feel with iron deficiency, you know, anemia, just lightheadedness upon standing, weakness, maybe muscle fatigue for no reason, things like of that nature. So it can definitely happen even though you're eating it. Forms, methylated is going to be the form that does not require intrinsic factor. So that normally solves the problem for most people. Some people will do like for B12 specifically, they'll do like the injectable, which you can, but not everyone has access to it or wants to do that. So methylated, you can take methylated folate, methylfolate, and methyl B12 and oral, in just oral form. So pretty easy. Okay. Magnesium. A lot of people are familiar with magnesium. Very important mineral, involved in 300 enzyme reactions, approximately, give or take. Now, magnesium deficiency can manifest in a lot of ways, like tingling, weakness, things like that. Even some, you know, the problem with a lot of this too is there is an overlap in symptoms. So like weakness, well, it could be, you know, it could be a lot of these things. That's why it's important to not only check levels, but with magnesium, most people need to supplement with magnesium. It's not something we get a lot of through the diet, and it's not something that we necessarily absorb super well unless it's in specific forms. So forms, yes, so many forms. There are a lot. Now, to keep it simple, well, we'll go through a few of the forms. Now, poor quality, I'm not even going to call them poor quality, but cheaper forms, perhaps, can cause a laxative effect. Milk of magnesia, that is magnesium hydroxide. So that's going to make you go to the bathroom, right? Not that that's bad, it's just not necessarily what we want to take to get our serum magnesium levels up. So higher quality forms are going to be a little bit better. Citrate, kind of iffy. It will still cause some gastrointestinal stimulation for some people. Some people are okay with it. There's a bunch of forms that are kind of in that like lower tier. Now upper tier, we're looking at like glycinate. Specifically biglycinate's a good form. That's a good overall form to take. Now I'm not mentioning every form specifically, but there is a couple forms that you can cross the blood-brain barrier. I like to use Neuromag from Life Extension, so you can actually get brain levels up. I believe the form is Tortate. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And I could be a little off on this, but I believe that it's bound with some type of taurine molecule, something of that fashion. You know, a lot of these forms, when we're talking about the mineral plus something else, it's just bound to something, right? So that's what you have on forms. The form definitely matters. You don't want to crap your pants. You want to get your serum magnesium levels up. Dosages, I mean, it's going to kind of depend on what you're getting through your diet, but I mean, I'm going to have most people 200 milligrams probably minimum. Most people more like 400. Some people might even need more if they have really poor absorption, but again, the form will definitely make a difference. Iron and ferritin. Well, ferritin would kind of show you stores of irons where iron serum levels are showing you, you know, the iron that's present at the time. You have, so with minerals especially, and certain vitamins, you have your serum levels, you have these things stored in various places in your body, within proteins, within cells, and so on and so forth. Now iron's interesting too because it's kind of like B12, especially that you get quite a bit of iron through your diet if you're eating animal proteins especially, and certain vegetables, among a couple other things, but or iron fortified foods. Now absorption, saturation issues, yep, that matters. Again, some people just don't absorb things well. It can be a lack of nutrients. So I don't know if anyone saw, I just made a post on my social media about vitamin C intake. I had a person with very high iron saturation, like very high iron levels, high saturation levels, high ferritin levels. We actually noticed that they were taking in a ton of dietary vitamin C, and we dropped it down, and boom, levels dropped big time, back into a safe range. Iron toxicity is not something you want to mess around with. So iron absorption is going to be one of the things. So if you take in copious amounts of vitamin C, be careful. Or if you're taking in iron and you have low levels, you might try to add some vitamin C. That could potentially be one way to enhance absorption. It doesn't take a lot. You could start by adding like 500 milligrams a couple times a day, so about 1,000 milligrams per day. That's a good, easy place to start. The forms matter: heme iron versus non-heme iron. Heme iron typically absorbs better. You can jump online, you can see the difference in what foods carry what. But that's why things like organ meats and stuff are good, because they're high in heme iron. But yeah, you don't want it to be too low. You certainly don't want it to be too high. So be careful. I see both. If it's too high, you can lower dietary iron intake. I know some people do like things like cream of rice or low-fat cereals and things like that. These things that are fortified with iron, and they're getting in just like ridiculous amounts of iron. The RDA, I think, is like 18 milligrams, which of course, we don't take that as gospel, because it can vary person to person. But I've seen people taking in like 100 milligrams a day or more, and it's just absurd. And way more than that in some cases. Probably not tracking at all, especially between iron fortified foods and the dietary iron intake through like meat, right, and vegetables. So yeah, just be careful with that you're not getting too much, and you also don't want to get too little. So again, check your iron levels. You can add both of these to a blood test. Very easy to do. All right. Iodine. I was struggling to find the fifth one. I wanted to keep this list of 5, and there were like a couple things that I was kind of debating I wanted to add in here, but I figured we'd do iodine just because it doesn't get a lot of attention, and it should. So iodine, important for thyroid hormone production, right? It is not abundant in the diet at all. It's very, very lacking in the diet, unless you guys are chewing on seaweed, or most people aren't. So one of the problems I run into with a lot of people is there's a lot of the foods that we're eating are low in sodium. They don't have a lot of added sodium to them, but people salt their food. What do they generally use? Sea salt. Sea salt sucks. Well, kinda. So sea salt, or pink salt, or whatever you're using, yes, it has some extra minerals, but like the amounts are so minimal that it would literally be something you'd probably never notice to any degree in your, by using that versus another salt. I generally don't even have anyone use pink salt unless we're supplementing with other iodine. We may use sea salt, but we'll use actual iodized sea salt, so there's iodine added to it. But yeah, easy way to get iodine. If you're salting your food, use iodized salt. Okay. Now, iodine RDAs are pretty low, which I don't necessarily. I'm not okay. So this is a tricky one because there's a lot of mixed literature on this, and there's some people that, some of these like more really proactive practitioners that will use massive doses of iodine, which I've seen done successfully too, especially in people that need to completely rebuild their thyroid and repair you know, some kind of thyroid damage, especially like autoimmune issues and things. So I've seen people use 15 milligrams, you know, like really high doses. Generally, I won't start anyone that high. We can titrate up, see if thyroid symptoms improve, come back down to more of a maintenance dose. But if you have an otherwise healthy thyroid function, you can just use iodized salt in most of your meals. And you probably, if you're eating like a typical meal frequency, I mean, you're probably going to get enough there if you add enough salt. Don't be afraid to eat things that have salt in them. I mean, I think everybody knows that by now. I really hope. It's more of electrolyte balance. Even you people with blood pressure issues, electrolyte balance, aldosterone levels. Okay? So, don't skip out on iodine. We need it. We need it. We need it. We need it. All right, guys. Yeah, so that's common nutrient deficiencies, at least some of the more common ones that I see. Yes, I probably left some off the list. If there's one that you absolutely want to know about, maybe I can give it its own little segment. But yeah, hope that was helpful. Talk to you guys next time.